Economics Introduction to Economics. Economics P220. Background to the subject of economics. The paper code for this subject is P220. The subject consists of two papers, i.e. Economics Paper 1 P220/1 and Economics Paper 2 P220/2. Economics Paper 1 P220/1. This paper tests the candidate's understanding of the basic economic principles. The questions set in this paper are open and usually demand for answers which can apply in any country. The questions usually end with the phrase "in an economy." Economics Paper 2 P220/2. This paper tests the candidate's understanding of the application of the economic principles. This paper concentrates on examining economics as it applies to Uganda in particular. When answering questions in Paper 2, pay a lot of attention to the tense used in the question. Do not use a speculative language, i.e. avoid using words like will and shall. The duration of each paper is 3 hours. Each paper has two sections, i.e. Section A and Section B. Section A. Section A has one compulsory question having 5 parts, A each carrying 4 marks. Economics Introduction to Economics. Section B. Section B consists of 6 essay questions, each carrying 20 marks, out of which a student is required to attempt only 4 questions, making a total of 80 marks. The course outline topics to be covered. 1. Introduction to Economics. 2. Price theory. 3. Production. 4. National income. 5. Economic growth and development. 6. Money and banking. 7. Population, labour and wages. 8. Unemployment. 9. Structure of Uganda's economy. 10. Public finance and fiscal policy. 11. International trade. 12. Inflation. 13. Economic development planning. Introduction to Economics. Economics centers on how human beings can make the best use of the available scarce resources to satisfy the competing ends needs. Economics deals with the Economics Introduction to Economics. Allocation and organization of resources that constitute the subject matter of economics. Definition of economics. There are many definitions of economics as put forward by different economists, among which are the following. 1. Professor Alfred Marshall defines economics as a study of mankind and an ordinary business way of life. This means that the subject is concerned with the study of how man lives, moves and thinks in an ordinary business way of life. 2. Professor A.C. Pegu defines economics as a means of how to increase production in order to raise people's standards of living. 3. The classical economists led by Adam Smith define economics as the science of accumulation of wealth. This means that economics as a subject is concerned with the way people in the nation become rich. However, this definition has been criticized for being narrow because it does not address the main problem facing man, i.e. scarcity of resources. 4. Economist Lionel Robbins said in 1935 that economics is a social science that studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. No. By the term ends, we refer to human needs and the desires of man. Economics Introduction to Economics. 2. The resources to satisfy the unlimited human wants are scarce. 3. The scarce resources have got alternative uses and thus there is need to make the right choices when allocating resources. The definition also recognizes economics as a social science, i.e. it deals with the part of economic activity which is concerned with the satisfaction of the material needs. Economics is a science and social science. Economics has elements that make it a science discipline, and these include: it is based on facts in real life. It is research-based, i.e. it makes experiments to prove certain things. It develops theories, principles and laws. It makes scientific observations. Economics also has elements which qualify it to be a social science. These include: it is based on value judgment, i.e. people's opinions. It is dynamic, i.e. it changes depending on the social and political conditions. It is based on human reasoning and human satisfaction. Assumptions in economics. It is not possible to isolate the problems in an economy. Economists make assumptions to enable them to study the behavior of an aspect/phenomenon and hence draw conclusions or predictions whenever there is a change in one variable. Economists use the term ceteris paribus. This is a Latin word which stands for other factors held. Economics Introduction to Economics. This is a body of concepts and principles which help us understand/explain and make predictions in economics. It is divided into 2 major parts. Microeconomics. Microeconomics is a branch of economics that deals with the economic behavior of small units. The prefix micro comes from the Greek word mikros, which means small. So microeconomics deals with the behavior of individual economic agents like consumers, producers and resource owners. The macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is the branch of economics that studies the economy as a whole. It assumes that the economy is a single functioning unit and any decision made affects all economic units. It deals with the behavior of economic aggregates such as unemployment, inflation, aggregate demand and supply, national income, public finance and fiscal policy, economic development planning, etc. 2. Statements in economics. A positive statement. In economics, a positive statement concerns what is, was or will be and contains no indication of approval or disapproval. What should be. Positive statements are testable, or at least it is possible to imagine facts that disapprove them. Examples of positive statements include I. The moon is made of black and gold cheese. This is empirically false but is still. Economics. Introduction to Economics. B. Normative statement. A normative statement expresses a valued judgment about whether a situation is subjectively desirable or undesirable. It concerns what ought to be. Normative statements are characterized by the modal verbs should, would or could. Examples of normative statements include I. The world would be a better place if the moon were made of green cheese. Roman 2. The price of milk should be SHS 1500 a gallon to give daily farmers a higher living standard. Roman 3. The government should increase the minimum wage to SHS 500,000 to reduce poverty. 3. The three fundamental basic economic principles problems. Scarcity. Scarcity refers to the limited supply of economic resources in relation to people's requirements/wants, e.g., there is scarcity of land, scarcity of trained labor, scarcity of trained entrepreneurs, scarcity of capital, etc. The problem of scarcity is considered to be the most fundamental problem, and it gives rise to the other two. The choice. Choice is defined as the making of the best decision out of the available alternatives. Because of scarcity of resources, man must make a scale of preference. Economics. Introduction to Economics. Making a choice. Importance of choice. Guides producers on what goods to produce and in what quantity. Guides producers on how to produce various goods and services. Guides producers on how to distribute the goods and services. Guides consumers when making consumption plans. See opportunity cost/trade-off cost/alternative cost/real cost. Opportunity cost is the second best alternative foregone when choice is made. Opportunity cost arises out of scarcity and choice. When a consumer uses a scale of preference to make choice, it implies that he is making a decision to satisfy one set of wants. This necessarily means sacrificing some other set. It is because of the consumer's limited resources income that he chooses commodity A and leaves B for the meantime. By making choice, therefore, he is sacrificing commodity B for A. It is this sacrifice that is referred to as opportunity cost in economics. The usage/importance of the concept of opportunity cost in economics. It guides producers in resource allocation/making production decisions. That is what to produce, when to produce, how to produce, where to produce and for whom to produce. It helps consumers in making consumption decisions, i.e., consumers choose commodities that yield maximum utility. The concept is used in pricing factors of production, e.g., workers that a producer cannot do without to pay high wages because they create a heavy opportunity cost when they are missing. Economics. Introduction to Economics. Country specializes in the production of a commodity where it has the least opportunity cost. It is a basis of economic planning. Government planners always look at the second best alternative foregone during the planning process. E.g., the government can spend more money on providing basic services like universal education than on recreational facilities like sports stadia. It helps workers to make employment decisions. That is whether to work or enjoy leisure. Assignment. Under what circumstances may the opportunity cost principle be applied in economics? 4 marks. Limitations of the concept of opportunity cost. It is based on the assumption that producers and consumers are rational, which is not always true. Many producers and consumers are not guided by a calculating mind. They simply produce or consume without looking at the opportunity cost. It lacks uniformity because different people have different priorities. Opportunity cost does not have a monetary value, and therefore it is very hard to attach a money value to it. Some factors of production are specific in that they cannot be put to alternative uses. The concept assumes perfect markets which are not existent in the real world. Economics. Introduction to Economics. Due to scarcity of resources, one has to make a choice out of the many alternatives, leaving some needs unsatisfied, hence opportunity cost. 4. The production possibility frontier/curve PPS/PPC/ transformation curve/opportunity cost curve. The PPF/C refers to a locus of points showing various combinations of two commodities that can maximally be produced when all the country's available resources are fully and efficiently utilized. Assumptions of the PPF/C. Assumes only two commodities being produced, e.g., capital goods and consumer goods. Assumes a closed economy. Assumes full employment of resources. Assumes constant technology. Assumes perfect mobility of factors of production. Economics. Introduction to Economics. points along the PPF/C show the maximum amount of both capital goods and consumer goods that can be produced using all the available resources, i.e. efficient utilization of resources. If all resources are devoted to the production of capital goods, the economy/country will have a maximum of and no consumer goods. If all resources are devoted to the production of consumer goods, the economy will have a maximum of not sign and no capital goods. However, both commodities are needed in the society, thus the society or producer would decide on how much of each commodity is to be produced. The society can either produce a point more capital goods and less consumer goods, or a point C. Economics Introduction to Economics. A point inside the PPF/C point D represents underutilization of resources excess capacity. A point outside the PPF/C point E is desirable but unattainable because of scarcity of resources. No. Movement of the PPF/C outwards illustrates economic growth and better utilization of resources. Use of the PPF/C to explain the basic economic principles. The PPF/C can be used to explain the concepts of scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. A scarcity. Since resources are scarce, man is forced to produce along the PPF/C. Man cannot produce beyond the PPF/C using the available resources and a constant technology. B. Choice. A choice has to be made concerning how much of each commodity is to be produced. The society can decide to produce only capital goods or only consumer goods, or a combination of the two. C. Opportunity cost. On the PPF/C, if society chooses to produce at point A rather than point B, then the value of the combination at point B becomes the opportunity cost. No. Economics Introduction to Economics. Such a shift is caused by a change in factors that favor/disfavor production of both capital goods and consumer goods. Causes of the PPF/T shift outwards: Part A. Discovery of new natural resources, e.g. oil deposit. Improvement in technology. Improvement in entrepreneurship skills. The economy becoming open, leading to capital inflow. An increase in the size of the labor force. Improvement in the skills of workers/increase in the efficiency of workers. Increase in the level of capital stock. Political climate becoming favorable. Improvement in the existing infrastructures. Causes of the PPF/T shift inwards: Part B. Depletion/exhaustion of natural resources. Decline in the level of technology. Reduced entrepreneurship ability. Increased capital outflow. Economics Introduction to Economics. Decrease in the level of capital stock. Political climate becoming unfavorable. Destruction of the existing infrastructures. No. For factors that cause a shift in the PPF, begin with the word change in all your points. Assignment. Outline any 4 factors that make the PPF to shift. Economics Introduction to Economics. 5. Resources. These are goods/inputs out of which man produces goods and services to satisfy his wants. Or, resources are tangible and intangible things, including human labor, that man makes use of to satisfy his unlimited wants. Examples of human resources include labor and entrepreneur. Resources are also known as factors of production, factor inputs or means of production. Resources can either be renewable or non-renewable. Economics Introduction to Economics. 6. Goods/commodities. These are tangible items which satisfy human wants directly, like clothes. Types of goods. A producer/capital/goods/goods of second order. These are goods used by producers to transform raw materials into finished goods. These goods are used in the production of other goods. They satisfy human wants indirectly, for example factory machines, buildings, raw materials, ovens, blender. P. Consumer/final goods/goods of first order. These are goods which are meant for final use by the final consumer and are capable of providing direct satisfaction to man's wants, e.g. salt, soap, foodstuffs, books, clothes, cars, computer. C. Intermediate goods. These are goods which are produced but have not reached the final stage of production. That is, they still need more processing in order to obtain a final good, e.g. sugar canes are intermediate goods in the making of sugar, sugar in the making of sweets, wheat flour in the making of bread. D. Durable goods. These are goods which are capable of giving a long-term service, e.g. buildings, furniture, machines, television set, computers. E. Perishable goods. Economics Introduction to Economics. If private goods are those enjoyed solely/exclusively by an individual such that one's consumption excludes others. A non-owner must always seek permission from the owner before using the good, e.g. personal cars, clothes, houses, laptops, textbooks, radio. Characteristics of private goods. They are excludable, i.e. owners prevent those who have not paid for it from using the good/no free riders. There is rivalry in their consumption, i.e. consumption by one necessarily prevents that of another. They involve direct payment to be consumed. They are scarce, which causes competition for them, g. Public goods. are those which, when provided, usually by the state, for a particular individual or group of individuals, become available for others to use at zero or no extra cost, and consumption by one person does not reduce the amount available for other users. Economics Introduction to Economics. Non-divisibility and divisible. They are equally available to all individuals in the society, usually provided by the state. They are indirectly paid for, i.e. through taxes. No competition for them, there is non-rivalry in their consumption. H3/natural/original goods are those which exist in natural abundance and are enough for everyone to consume as much as they want at zero cost, e.g. rainwater, sunshine, moonlight, soil, air, etc. Characteristics of free goods. They are provided by nature. They are in abundant supply. They are consumed at zero cost. They provide utility. Economic goods are goods that are scarce, and for one to consume them, a cost has to be incurred, or are goods that arise out of scarcity and choice. Any commodity which is paid for is an economic good, e.g. clothes, vehicles, pens. Characteristics of economic goods. They are relatively scarce. Economics Introduction to Economics. They have opportunity cost. Their ownership is transferable. Chain-made goods are those whose consumption is deemed intrinsically desirable and are meant to improve the quality of life of the people, and their consumption should be encouraged. Examples of merit goods are safe water, healthcare, and education. Demerit goods. These are goods considered to be socially undesirable and reduce the quality of life of individuals in the society at large, e.g. cigarettes, alcohol, pornographic materials. Unnormal goods. These are goods whose demand increases as the consumer's income increases, e.g. first-hand cars, first-hand shoes, first-hand suits. Inferior goods are those whose demand reduces as the income of the consumer increases, e.g. cassava and beans, second-hand clothes, second-hand computers, second-hand shoes. Or are goods with negative income elasticity of demand. Economics Introduction to Economics. Or are goods with positive elasticity of demand and negative income elasticity of demand consumed by low-income earners. Examples of different goods are basic foodstuffs like bananas, maize flour, bread, cassava, potatoes, etc. All different goods are inferior, but not all inferior goods are different. Are superior goods / articles of ostentation / luxury / status symbols. These are goods that are desirable only when they are expensive and people buy them, show their class, or to impress / attract the attention of others. For example, golden earrings, sports cars, perfumes, golden watches, expensive phones, etc. The demand for superior goods increases as the price increases. Necessity / essential goods. These are goods that a consumer cannot do without, for example food, shelter, water, clothing, soap, fuel. The demand for necessities first increases when there is an increase in the consumer's income up to a certain point, beyond which further increase in income does not affect the quantity demanded. Quantity demanded remains constant. Complementary goods. These are goods where the quantity demanded of one commodity varies inversely. Economics Introduction to Economics. Are substitute goods. These are goods where the quantity demanded of one commodity varies directly as the price of the other commodity. As the price of one goes up, the demand for the other also rises. Or substitute goods are goods which can be used for the same purpose. Or substitute goods are goods which can be used interchangeably. Examples include Colgate and Fresh Up, tea and coffee, Omo and Nomi, etc. 7. Services. These are intangible items that are helpful in making our lives comfortable and useful, e.g. medical services, teaching services, hairdressing services, banking services. Or these are intangible items used to facilitate the production of goods and services. They can be classified as personal services. These are provided by individuals directly, e.g. pastors, doctors, services of a teacher, etc. Commercial services. Economics Introduction to Economics. 8. Human wants / needs. These are desires of man which are satisfied by consuming goods and services. They can also be defined as biological, physical, and cultural needs of an individual or society. They can be categorized as basic needs / wants. These are necessities of life without which life would hardly exist, e.g. shelter, food, water, and clothes. Secondary needs. These are needs that are required to make life comfortable, e.g. television sets, cars, air conditioners, etc. Material needs / want. These are desires which are satisfied through consumption of tangible / physical goods, e.g. desire for clothes, food, houses, chair, phone, etc. Immaterial needs. These are desires satisfied by consumption of services, e.g. entertainment, security, health care, knowledge, etc. Private wants. These are desires of individuals and are always satisfied using personal resources, e.g., the desire for eyeglasses, wheelchair by a lame person, fun. Economics Introduction to Economics. These are collective needs of society which are satisfied by public goods and service, e.g., the desire for public health centres, public schools, public roads, national defence, etc. G. Satiable wants. These are wants which can be satisfied by the available resources at a given period of time, e.g., one's desire to quench thirst is satisfied by water for some hours. H. Insatiable wants. These are wants which cannot be satisfied using the available resources in a short period of time. Such wants cannot be satisfied because of the limited resources, e.g., the desire for money and knowledge. Features/characteristics of human wants. Human wants are unlimited, i.e., they are endless, e.g., man's desire for education, security, leisure is unlimited. They are dynamic, i.e., they keep changing from time to time depending on the prevailing social, political, and economic conditions. They are varied, i.e., they are many and of different types, e.g., spiritual. Economics Introduction to Economics. They are complementary, i.e., they are jointly satisfied, e.g., one's desire for a car calls for other desires like buying fuel and car service. 9. Wealth is a stock of productive goods/assets which satisfy private and social needs of people. Or, wealth is the stock of assets and other resources existing in an economy at a given time which are used to generate more income. Features/characteristics of wealth. It is relatively scarce. It creates utility/provides satisfaction. Its ownership is transferable. It has a monetary value/commands a price. Can be used to produce more wealth. Economics Introduction to Economics. E.g., company vehicles, raw materials, commercial buildings, industrial machines, generator and furniture. 3. Social/public/collective wealth. These are assets that are owned by the state/government and are collectively used by all members of the society, e.g., public roads, schools, hospitals, public springs/wells, streetlights. 10. Economic questions. An economy or an individual is faced with a number of economic questions. These include what to produce. Since resources or factors of production are scarce, a choice of what is to be produced must be made. Some societies would prefer to have more food, clothing, and medical care, while others would prefer more schools, roads, and other forms of infrastructures. B. When to produce. That is choosing to produce now for present consumption or in the future. Most people prefer to consume now than postponing it for tomorrow. A bird in hand is better than 1,000 in the bush. A situation in which present consumption is preferred to future consumption is termed as positive rate of time preference, while a situation in which future consumption is preferred to present. Economics Introduction to Economics. D. How to produce. This concerns the method of production. That is whether to use capital-intensive or labor-intensive technology. In a country like Uganda, where labor is abundant and cheaper than capital, more labor is used to produce goods and services. In contrast, developed countries have vast capital equipment and therefore use capital-intensive methods at different production levels. E. For whom to produce. This concerns the nature of the consumers who are to consume the products. That is whether to produce for the rich or the poor, male or female, young, adults or all people, and so on. F. How much to produce. This depends on the demand for the commodity and the objective of the firm. The more the demand for the commodity, the more quantities producers are likely to produce and put on the market. Also, if the objective of the firm is to maximize sales, more is produced than when the firm's objective is to maximize profits. 11. Economic systems. An economic system is an organization of ownership, allocation, and distribution of resources in a given country. The above fundamental economic questions are answered differently depending on the type of economic system. There are 3. Economics Introduction to Economics. C. Mixed economy. The free enterprise economy is an economic system where resources are owned, allocated, and distributed by private individuals through market forces of demand and supply with little or no government intervention. Characteristics/features of the free enterprise economy. Resources are owned by private individuals. The price is determined by the market forces of demand and supply. The production of commodities depends on demand. Producers aim at profit maximization and consumers aim at utility maximization. There are many buyers and sellers in the market. There is reliance on price mechanism in the allocation of resources. There is limited or no government intervention, especially in resource allocation and decision making. Characterized by self-interest. There is freedom of choice. Producers are not forced to produce certain commodities and consumers are not forced to consume what they do not want. Existence of high levels of competition amongst producers and consumers in both factor and commodity markets respectively. Merits of the free enterprise economy. Economics Introduction to Economics. Employment opportunities. 3. Provides an incentive to economic growth. The private ownership of resources facilitates the exploitation and utilization of resources in an economy. This increases the production of goods and services, hence economic growth. 4. Leads to production of better quality products due to competition in production. 5. Promotes efficient allocation of resources due to competition and the profit motive of producers. 6. Encourages creativity and innovativeness due to competition in production. 7. Encourages the growth of entrepreneurship due to the urge to earn high profits. 8. Consumers enjoy goods at low prices due to benefits of competitive production. This leads to better standards of living. 9. Avoids administrative costs by the government because of automatic allocation of resources by the invisible hand. 10. There is low bureaucracy in decision making. This reduces wastage of time and delays because production decisions are quickly made without consulting government offices. 11. Promotes consumer sovereignty. This is because consumers are given freedom to decide on what is to be produced and consumed. 12. Provides a variety of goods and services due to a large number of producers. Demerits of the free enterprise economy. Economics Introduction to Economics. Balance of payments due to absence of government interference. 3. Leads to unemployment and underemployment due to closure of some weak firms. 4. Monopoly is likely to develop with its negative consequences, especially exploitation of consumers. Monopolistic firms restrict output and charge high prices with an aim of maximizing profits. 5. Worsens income and wealth inequalities due to lack of a regulatory body. Resource owners tend to accumulate a lot of wealth while the poor grow poorer. 6. Leads to wastage of resources through excessive advertisement and duplication of goods and services. 7. Does not provide public goods such as defense, justice and sewage collection, and merit goods like education, public health and safe water. This mainly because it would be impossible to charge them prices since free riders are not excluded in their consumption. 8. Some resources may be overexploited leading to their quick depletion and others may remain idle. 9. Production of goods and services is in favor of the rich luxury goods and the poor necessities. As a result, cheap goods disappear from the market. 10. Results into production and consumption of harmful but profitable goods like alcohol, cigarettes. 11. Does not respond to rapid, sudden structural changes like flooding, famine. Economics Introduction to Economics. No. The government intervenes in a free market economy through its policies which include the following: taxation, subsidization of producers, price legislation, maximum or minimum price, government planning, rationing of consumers. Government provides scarce resources to consumers, wage determination, minimum wage, formation of consumer associations through which the government sensitizes people about their rights. The communism/centrally planned/socialist economy is an economic system where resources are owned, allocated and distributed by the central authority on behalf of the citizens. The government creates a department called the Central Planning Authority, and this department makes decisions on ownership, control and allocation of resources. Examples of countries that are largely socialist include Russia, China, North Korea, East Germany, Cuba. Features of the command economy. Economic or productive resources are owned by the state, i.e. the state owns all the natural resources and businesses in the country. Economics Introduction to Economics. The government. Prices are determined by the state that despite either setting a minimum price to benefit producers or a maximum price to benefit consumers. The main aim of production is to maximize people's welfare. The government does not aim at making profits but producing goods and services that improve people's welfare. Decisions pertaining to economic activities such as resource exploitation are handled by a central planning authority, and therefore some resources are reserved for future use. Self-reliance is always the major goal of the government whenever economic resources are being designed. There is limited competition in production because the government is not profit motivated and consumers have to wait for what the government is to provide. Extensive planning by the central authority is done. The government is in charge. Economics Introduction to Economics. 5. People's welfare is improved since emphasis in production is on welfare and not commercial gains. 6. This ensures that adequate resources are devoted to production of public and merit goods. 7. The system can cope with rapid structural changes such as drought, famine, floods, earthquakes, etc. through proper planning by the Central Planning Authority. 8. The system caters for the unprivileged groups of people in the society such as the lame and the poor, hence equal distribution of opportunities. 9. It controls the production of harmful products in the economy. The government is in position to regulate the production of such commodities like alcohol, cigarettes, through taxation. 10. Some key areas like production of firearms cannot be left in the hands of private individuals. This is because it may cause insecurity in the country, hence a need for a planned economy. 11. More employment opportunities are provided as the government tries to improve welfare and even out income distribution. Demerits of the command economy. 1. Many officials are required to estimate wants and to direct factors of production accordingly. This results into high costs. 2. It is hard to accurately estimate people's needs since there are many. This leads to economics introduction to economics. 4. There is inefficiency in production due to absence of stiff competition. 5. The quality of final goods and services produced is low due to lack of competition. 6. Limited variety of goods is produced as government's interest is in provision of necessities of life. This limits the choice of consumers and they may be forced to consume goods which are not of their choice. 7. The system is a disincentive to private or individual initiative due to state ownership of resources, i.e., what belongs to the state is no man's resource. 8. The system is associated with limited inventions and innovations due to absence of competition. 9. The system is associated with high levels of corruption and embezzlement of government funds. This is because this sector cannot supervise all the sectors effectively. 10. It leads to imbalance in regional resource allocation and development. This is due to state influence in resource distribution basing on political support. 11. It leads to budgetary deficits in the economy. This is due to high administrative costs and subsidization of parastatals which are not economically productive. 12. It is difficult to coordinate all the economic activities at the same time. This is because the government has a lot of responsibilities. Assignment. Present the advantages of capitalism over socialism. Economics introduction to economics. Features of a mixed economy. Ownership of resources is both by the state and private individuals. Some productive resources like land and industries belong to the government while others are privately owned. Economic decisions are made by both the state and private individuals. Production is both for profit and welfare maximization. The state produces goods to improve people's welfare while private individuals produce to maximize profits. Resource allocation is by both the market forces of demand and supply and the central planning authority. There is coexistence of both the private and public sector. There is existence of indicative planning. Indicative planning is one where the government draws plan targets and provides conducive political, social and economic policies to guide the private sector, but it does not participate in plan. Economics introduction to economics. 3. Production of a wide variety of products by both the private and public sectors. 4. Reduced income inequalities due to state control. 5. Individual self-interest are regulated, e.g., overexploitation of resources and consumer exploitation. 6. It increases employment opportunities due to existence of both the private and public sectors. 7. The public sector provides essential goods and services that the private sector would not provide. 8. There is economic stability due to government intervention. 9. Increased rate of economic efficiency and production due to competition and planning. 10. The taxes got from the private sector can generate income for the government to fulfill its obligations. Demerits. 1. In most cases, the private sector suffers from restrictions and taxes imposed by the state, yet the public sector is subsidized, thus the ground for competition is not leveled. 2. Where the private sector is dominant, the consumers are exploited by the profit-motivated producers. The producers can also influence government decisions politically and economically. 3. An inefficient public sector is a big burden to the government since the government. Economics introduction to economics. NB. In economics, we look at the role of from a functional perspective, i.e., in this particular case, we focus on what the government does or what it puts in place in a mixed economic system. Hence, the role functional work of government in a mixed economy is thus: 1. Enacting and enforcing laws that govern trade or business activities. The government creates a set of laws, for example, the Law of Contract, Consumer Protection Laws, Sale of Goods Act, Food and Drugs Act, etc. Such laws help in regulating the way commercial activities are to be conducted in an economy. 2. Supplementing and modifying the price mechanism. The government in a mixed economy may intervene in the working of price mechanism through measures like price controls, taxation and subsidization. For example, legislation of maximum price by the government helps in protecting consumers from being exploited by producers through overcharging. 3. It reduces or checks income inequality. The government uses policies like progressive taxation, supporting small and medium-scale enterprises, diversification of the economy, etc. to create a fair distribution of income among people in an economy. Fair distribution of income promotes savings and investment. 4. Ensuring macroeconomic stability. The government is in charge of fighting inflation by regulating the volume of money in circulation. It also ensures that the exchange. Economics introduction to economics. 6. It checks social cost negative externalities in a country. The government uses environment protection laws to check or reduce the degradation or pollution of the environment. It ensures that there is proper treatment and disposal of industrial waste garbage. By controlling the social costs, the government is able to improve the quality of life of the people. 7. Ensuring that political stability prevails in an economy. By promoting political stability, there is assured security of life and property of people. This stimulates investment both in the public and private sector. 8. It levies taxes to generate revenue to finance development programs or activities. The government is able to finance its capital and recurrent expenditure by using the revenue generated from taxes levied on incomes of individuals, goods, profits of companies, etc. 9. Undertaking strategic ventures which cannot be left in the hands of private investors. Such ventures include the manufacturing of ammunition, printing of the national currency, etc. 10. Undertaking projects that require large initial capital which the private investors are unable to raise. Such projects include construction of hydroelectric power generating dams, construction of roads and rail lines, etc. By financing such projects, the government directly supports the activities of the private sector. 11. Influencing the location of industries in particular areas. This is achieved by Economics Introduction to Economics. 13. Formulating/laying down plans to be followed by the private sector or private investors and the public sector. For example, the plan for modernization of agriculture PMA, which was designed by the government of Uganda, requires participation of both the public and private sector in the economy for its effective implementation. 14. Providing and maintaining the physical infrastructure in an economy, roads, rail lines, power dams. Such infrastructure greatly supports the production process, leading to increased output in terms of goods and services. The production of more goods and services gives rise to economic growth. 15. Ensuring creation of more employment opportunities for its people. In a mixed